One at April, with his sure soda, the drucht of March hath percent on the rota, and
all
every
the veins are bathed in liquor of such power as brings about the engendering of the flower. With these words, written sometime in the late 1380s, 600 years ago, the first great poem written in English begins. These are the first lines of the general prologue to the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. I say written in English, but of course it's not exactly the English we speak or write today. It's closer both to Old English, the language of the Anglo-Saxons, and to Norman French, the language of William the Conqueror. Yet this Middle English, as it's called, in which Chaucer wrote, is recognizably closer to us than anything that went before. And so are the people about whom Chaucer wrote. The Canterbury Tales is a long sequence of stories, mostly linked together by introductions and prologues, supposed to be spoken by the characters themselves. A knight and his squire, a merchant, a doctor, a cook, a miller, and many people connected with the church, a parson, a prioress, a friar, a pardoner, and so on. A cross-section of medieval society, very sharp-eyed in its observation, often slyly funny, both in the way Chaucer describes them in the general prologue and in the way they seem to present themselves in their own introductions. The characters are all going on pilgrimage to the shrine of Thomas à Becket at Canterbury, and before they set out to ride together from Southwark in London to Canterbury, they decide to entertain one another with stories. In the general prologue to the tales, Chaucer gives you in the first 40 lines the time of year, April, the purpose of the visit, the setting at the start, the number of pilgrims, about 29 of them, the fact that the poet himself is one of them, and the introduction to the cast list.
One at April, with his sure soda, the drucht of March hath perced to the rota, and battered every vine in sweet liquor, of which virtue engendered is the flower. One Zephyrus eke with his sweat of breath, inspired hath in every holt and heath the tender croppers, and the younger son hath in the ram his halve cozy run, and smaller fool is macked melody, that slepen all the nicht with open ee, so pricketh hem nature in hier courages. Then longen folk to goen on pilgrimages, and palmers for to seken strange strandes to ferne Hollowways, couth in sundry Londes. And specially, from every sheerest ender of England to Canterbury they wend, the holy blissful martyr for to seke, that him hath holpen one that they were sick. Befell that in that season, on a day, in Southwark at the tabard as he lie, ready to wenden on me pilgrimage to Canterbury with full devout courage, at nicht were come into that hostelry well 29, in ein company of sundry folk, the aventure I fall in fellowship, and pilgrims were they all that toward Canterbury wolden rede. The chambers and the stables were in weed, and well we were amazed at the best. And shortly, when the sun was to rest, so had he spoken with him every John that he was of here fellowship anon, and marde forward early for Teresa to talk our way there, as he you devise. But nevertheless, while he have team and space, ere that he further in this tale passe, may think of it according to his own to tell you all the condition of each of him, so as it seemed may. and which they were, and of what degree, and eke in what array that they were in. And at a knicht nan Wally first begin.
The Knight indeed tells the first of the 24 stories, a suitable tale of love and chivalry in keeping with his personality. Later on, Chaucer himself pretends to be persuaded to tell a story, but makes it deliberately so boring and amateurish that the host of the inn in Southwark, who is travelling with them, stops him abruptly in mid-career. "By God," he said, "put plainly in a word, your dreary rhyming isn't worth a turd." Among the characters connected with the church, there's one particularly unpleasant fellow, the pardoner. Pardoners were minor but powerful church officers, whose job it was, with presumed authority from the Pope, to sell divine forgiveness for money. Naturally enough, they weren't popular figures. And when Chaucer in the prologue comes to describe this particular one, we're left in no doubt about his loathsomeness, though Chaucer, as usual, ironically suggests it, rather than attacking him head-on.
This pardoner had hair as yellow as wax, hanging down smoothly like a hank of flax. In driblets fell his locks behind his head, down to his shoulders, which they overspread. Thinly they fell, like rat tails, one by one. He wore no hood upon his head, for fun. The hood inside his wallet had been stowed. He aimed at riding in the latest mode. But for a little cap, his head was bare, and he had bulging eyeballs, like a hare. He'd sewed a holy relic on his cap. His wallet lay before him on his lap, brimful of pardons, come from Rome, all hot. He had the same small voice a goat has got. His chin no beard had harboured, nor would harbour. Smoother than ever chin was left by barber. I judge he was a gelding, or a mare. As to his trade, from Berwick down to Ware, there was no pardoner of equal grace. For in his trunk he had a pillowcase, which he asserted was Our Lady's veil. He said he had a gobbet of the sail St. Peter had, the time when he made bold to walk the waves, till Jesus Christ took hold. He had a cross of metal set with stones, and in a glass a rubble of pig's bones. And with these relics, any time he found some poor up-country parson to astound, in one short day, in money down, he drew more than the parson in a month or two, and by his flatteries and prevarication made monkeys of the priest and congregation. But still, to do him justice, first and last, in church, he was a noble ecclesiast. How well he read a lesson or told a story, but best of all, he sang an offertory. For well he knew that when the song was sung, he'd have to preach and tune his honey tongue, and well he could win silver from the crowd. That's why he sang so merrily and loud.
The tale the pardoner tells later on is one of the most effective in the whole of the Canterbury Tales. It's dramatically direct and powerful in its simplicity. Before the story itself begins, the pardoner, entirely in character, lays his hypocritical bait by giving plenty of ghastly moral examples about drinking and gambling and swearing and greed. His story is meant to compel the audience to repent such evil ways. When he's finished, he tries to sell some of his holy relics and pardons, and is promptly given a rude reply by the host of the inn. Here is the pardoner's tale itself, in Neville Coghill's modern translation. It's of 3 rioters I have to tell, who, long before the morning service bell, were sitting in a tavern for drink. And as they sat, they heard the handbell clink before a coffin going to the grave. One of them called the little tavern knave and said,
"Go and find out at once. Look, Spry, whose corpse is in that coffin passing by? Look, you get the name correctly, too."
Sir,
said the boy.
no need, I promise you. 2 hours before you came here, I was told. He was a friend of yours in days of old. And suddenly, last night, the man was slain. Upon his bench, face up, dead drunk again. There came a privy thief. They call him Death. who kills us all round here, and in a breath he speared him through the heart. He never stirred. And then death went his way without a word. He's killed 1,000 in the present plague, and sir, it doesn't do to be too vague if you should meet him. You had best be wary. Be on your guard with such an adversary. Be primed to meet him everywhere you go. That's what my mother said. That's all I know.
The publican joined in with,
By St. Mary, what the boy says is right. You had best be wary. This very year he killed, in a large village a mile away, man, woman, serf at tillage, page in the household, children, all there were. Yes, I imagine that he lives round there. It's well to be prepared in these alarms. He might do you dishonor.
God's arms.
the rioter said,
Is he so fierce to meet? I'll search for him by Jesus, street by street. God's blessed bones, I'll register a vow. Here, chaps, the three of us, together. Now, hold up your hands like me, and we'll be brothers in this affair, and each defend the others, and we will kill this traitor death, I say. Away with him, as he has made away with all our friends. God's dignity, tonight.
They made their bargain, swore with appetite these three to live and die for one another, as brother born might swear to his born brother. And up they started in their drunken rage and made towards this village, which the page and publican had spoken of before. Many and grisly were the oaths they swore, tearing Christ's blessed body to a shred.
If we can only catch him, death is dead.
When they had gone not fully half a mile, just as they were about to cross a stile, they came upon a very poor old man who humbly greeted them and thus began.
God look to you, my lords, and give you quiet.
To which the proudest of these men of riot gave back the answer,
What, old fool? Give place. Why are you all wrapped up except your face? Why live so long? Isn't it time to die?
The old fellow looked him in the eye and said,
Because I never yet have found, though I have walked to India, searching round village and city on my pilgrimage, one who would change his youth to have my age. And so my age is mine, and must be still upon me for such time as God may will. Not even death, alas, will take my life. So, like a wretched prisoner at strife within himself, I walk alone and wait about the earth, which is my mother's gate. Knocking with my staff from night to noon, and crying, Mother, open to me soon. Look at me, Mother, won't you let me in? See how I wither flesh and blood and skin. Alas, when will these bones be laid to rest? Mother, I would exchange for that were best the wardrobe in my chamber, standing there so long for yours. Aye, for a shirt of hair to wrap me in. She has refused her grace. Whence comes the pallor of my withered face? But it dishonored you when you began to speak so roughly, sir, to an old man, unless he had injured you in word or deed. It says in Holy Writ, as you may read, Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head and honor it. And therefore, be it said, do no more harm to an old man than you, being young, would have another do when you are old, if you should live till then. And so may God be with you, gentlemen, for I must go whither I have to go.
By God,
the gambler said,
you shan't do so. You don't get off so easy, by St. John. I heard you mention just a moment gone a certain traitor, Death, who singles out and kills the fine young fellows hereabout, and you're his spy, by God. Do wait a bit. Say what he is, or you shall pay for it by God and by his holy sacrament. I say you who joined together by consent to kill us younger folk. You thieving swine!
Well, sir,
he said,
if it be your design to find out death, turn up this crooked way toward that grove. I left him there today, under a tree, and there you'll find him waiting. He isn't one to hide for all your prating. You see that oak? He won't be far to find. And God protect you that redeemed mankind. Aye, and amend you.
Thus that ancient man. At once, the three young rioters began to run and reached the tree, and there they found a pile of golden florins on the ground. New coined, 8 bushels of them, as they thought. No longer was it death those fellows sought, for they were all so thrilled to see the sight. The florins were so beautiful and bright that down they sat beside the precious pile. The wickedest spoke first after a while.
Brothers,
He said,
you will listen to what I say. I'm pretty sharp, although I joke away. It's clear that fortune has bestowed this treasure to let us live in jollity and pleasure. Light come, light go. We'll spend it as we ought. God's precious dignity, who would have thought this morning was to be our lucky day? If only we could get the gold away back to my house, or else to yours, perhaps. For as you know, the gold is ours, chaps. We'd all be at the top of fortune, eh? But certainly it can't be done by day. People would call us robbers, a strong gang, so our own property would make us hang. No, we must bring this treasure back by night, some prudent way, and keep it out of sight. And so, as a solution, I propose we draw for lots. See the way it goes. Whoever draws the longest, lucky man, shall run to town as quickly as he can to fetch us bread and wine, but keep things dark, while 2 remain in hiding here to mark our heap of treasure. If there's no delay, when night comes down, we'll carry it away, all 3 of us, wherever we have planned.
He gathered lots and hid them in his hand, bidding them draw for where the luck should fall. It fell upon the youngest of them all, and off he ran at once towards the town. As soon as he had gone, the first sat down and thus began a parley with the other.
You know that you can trust me as a brother. Now, let me tell you where your profit lies. You know our friend has gone to get supplies, and here's a heap of gold that is to be divided equally amongst us 3. Nevertheless, if I could shape things thus so that we shared it out, the 2 of us, wouldn't you take it as a friendly act?
But how?
The other said,
He knows the fact that all the gold's left with me and you. What can we tell him? What are we to do?
Is it a bargain?
said the first.
Or no? But I can tell you in a word or so what's to be done to bring this thing about.
Trust me.
The other said,
You needn't doubt my word. I won't betray you. I'll be true.
Well,
said his friend,
you see that we are 2, and 2 are twice as powerful as 1. Now look, when he comes back, get up in fun to have a wrestle. Then, as you attack, I'll up and put my dagger through his back while you in here struggling, as in a game. Then draw your dagger too, and do the same. Then all this money will be ours to spend, divided equally, of course, dear friend. Then we can gratify our lusts and fill the day with dicing at our own sweet will.
Thus these 2 miscreants agreed to slay the third and youngest, as you heard me say. The youngest, as he ran towards the town, kept turning over, rolling up and down within his heart the beauty of those bright new florins, saying,
Lord, to think I might have all that treasure to myself alone. Could there be anyone beneath the throne of God so happy as I then should be?
And so the fiend, our common enemy, was given power to put it in his thought that there was always poison to be bought, and that with poison he could kill his friends. To men in such a state, the devil sends thoughts of this kind, and has a full permission to lure them on to sorrow and perdition. For this young man was utterly content to kill them both and never to repent. And on he ran, he had no thought to tarry, came to the town, found an apothecary, and said,
Sell me some poison, if you will. I have a lot of rats I want to kill. And there's a polecat, too, about the yard that takes my chickens, and it hits me hard. But I'll get even, as is only right, with vermin that destroy a man by night.
The chemist answered,
I have a preparation which you shall have.
And by my soul's salvation, if any living creature eat or drink a mouthful, ere he have the time to think, though he took less than makes a grain of wheat, you see him fall down dying at your feet. Yes, die he must, and in so short a while, you'll scarcely have the time to walk a mile. The poison is so strong. You understand?
This cursed fellow grabbed into his hand the box of poison, and away he ran into a neighboring street and found a man who lent him 3 large bottles. He withdrew and deftly poured the poison into 2. He kept the 3rd one clean, as well he might, for his own drink, meaning to work all night stacking the gold and carrying it away. And when this rioter, this devil's clay, had filled his bottles up with wine, all 3, back to rejoin his comrades, sauntered he. Why make a sermon of it? Why waste breath? Exactly in the way they planned his death, they fell on him and slew him 2 to 1. Then said the first of them, when this was done,
Now for a drink. Sit down and let's be merry. And for later on, there'll be the corpse to bury.
and as it happened, reaching for a sup, he took a bottle full of poison up and drank, and his companion, nothing loath, drank from it also, and they perished both. There is in Avicenna's long relation concerning poison and its operation, trust me, no ghastlier section to transcend what these 2 wretches suffered at their end. Thus these 2 murderers received their due. So did the treacherous young poisoner too. When Chaucer died in the year 1400, he was already a famous poet. He'd spent almost the whole of his working life at the center of affairs as a courtier, a diplomat, and a civil servant. And in such positions, he'd been well placed not only to observe a wide range of varied human beings, but also to be recognized as a poet. He had a ready-made available audience of sophisticated and sympathetic people, the educated minority of his day. But very many poets of the Middle Ages were anonymous, or else their identities, if they were ever known, had been lost to us. It's with their lyrics, the popular religious songs of 500 years ago, that our next program begins. And in the same program, poems about love, about danger and disease and execution, leading us up to the greatest poet of them all, William Shakespeare.